Welcome to the Talegate Podcast with your host, Al Blanton. At Talegate, we celebrate the rich history of sports in the state of Alabama. So come with us as we relive great moments, great games, great players and coaches, and in the process, preserve memories for a lifetime. Okay, this is Al Blanton, and it is November 11th, 2024, and we are here with Caleb Barnett, who is a senior at Mountain Brook High School, University of Alabama commit. Caleb, how's it going today?
Going great, yes sir. How are you?
Good. My first question, and this may be a little bit tough question for you. I'm going to go ahead and hit you with it, though.
Sure.
Petco Park or Chase Field? Which one?
That's easy, Petco.
Really?
Petco by far. I love Chase Field. That was great. But Petco is outside. I love playing outside. I like the dirt infield is better than Chase is actually a turf infield, even though it doesn't really look like it. But I like the dirt infield at Petco. And it's just the weather was perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego. It was perfect.
Yeah.
It was like 70 and no wind. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So I prefer Petco.
So just to brush everybody up, Caleb was selected for the MLB High School All-American game, which was held at Petco Park in San Diego, and also the Perfect Game All-American Classic, which is at Chase Field. Tell me, I want to know about both of those experiences. I mean, for a guy who could, barely hit one out of the infield, having an experience like that, walk us through kind of both of those. I'd love to know more about both stadiums, about the towns in general, and just tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was surreal. I got to hang out with a bunch of kids I met from a long time before with some of the best players in the country. So it was fun just hanging out with them, being in like sort of a foreign place. I've never really been to I've been to California, but I don't really remember. I was too young. But California was amazing. That was the Petco Park for the MLB All-American. It was so fun. We all stayed in a hotel. All the kids hung out. Me and my dad went and ate out at a nice restaurant in California. The weather was perfect. I got to walk on the beach a little bit. Saw the Navy piers, which was super cool. And the baseball is just amazing. You get to see kids out there chucking like 98, 99. You got kids hitting balls like 115 off the bat. It was amazing. And then Perfect Game All-American was super fun in Arizona. Really hot, but we got to stay inside, so that was nice. Again, just an amazing environment. You got former MLB players, even some current MLB players showed up. You got draft picks from this year.
Yeah.
Showed up. Slade Caldwell showed up. And then, again, you're with the same kids, some of the best players in the country. It's just a fun event. You got watching BP even is just fun. Nobody wants to go watch BP, but that's like one of the most fun things you can do is just sit there and watch. So
Who were some former or current MLB stars that you got a chance to kind of hang around with?
So I met Harold Reynolds was at the MLB thing.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the analysts, something on MLB Network.
Yeah.
He was actually a coach at the MLB All-American, so I got to talk to him a little bit. And then like Slade Caldwell, Braylon Payne are all some other kids that got drafted this year in the first round. Were at the Perfect Game thing. So that was cool. And then over the summer, I got to meet a ton of guys. I met Steven Strasburg, the Nationals pitcher, that was cool to talk to, pick his brain. He's just a crazy baseball guy, super talented. But yeah, it was
career ended a little bit too soon with him. I want to kind of back up now, and I want to kind of bring us all the way forward to where we are now. But how did you first get started playing baseball?
As long as I've been playing as long as I can remember. My dad was a baseball player and a basketball player at his high school, so nothing crazy. So I started out playing those two sports for my whole life. I mean, I've heard stories that at 2 years old we were just hitting wiffle balls in the backyard. So that's really all that I can remember is baseball for my whole life. I mean, 2 years old to now, I guess.
And have you grown up and lived in Mountain Brook your whole life?
No, sir, no. So I was actually born in Oxford, England. So overseas. My dad was getting his PhD at the University of Oxford, or Oxford University. And so I was born over there, overseas. And then they moved here back to Alabama, which is where they have my little brother, Paul. So we lived here for about 2-3 years. And then when I was about 4 or 5, we moved up to Philadelphia. So I lived in Philly, Pennsylvania for most of my life, I mean, about 10, 11 years. So
Okay.
I would say I grew up in Philly, but about 3 years ago we moved here, and it's been great ever since.
Yeah.
Love this place.
What brought y'all down to Alabama?
So actually, my whole family's from Alabama. Both my parents were born and raised Homewood, which is like 10 minutes from where we are right now. My parents getting older. I haven't seen, we don't saw them but like once or twice a year. So sort of just wanted to move down for family to be closer as they're getting older, and really just that. And I mean, it's not bad. The weather's a little bit better. The baseball's a little bit better. So it's kind of just a nice move all around.
I'm interested in your life. I mean, when did you start to realize, like, I kind of want to take people in the, give them access to an elite recruit, and what life is like for you. But at what point did you start to think, hey, this is, I may have a future in this?
Sure. It was always a dream of mine to play college baseball. Was my initial dream. I always wanted to. I would watch college baseball with my dad. Up north, baseball wasn't a huge deal, or it isn't as big as it is down here. But we used to go to like Villanova baseball games because there was just, you could walk in, it was free. So just go and watch those, and just seeing those guys were huge, and like, it was always my dream to sort of play in a college baseball game. I would say right around when I was 11 or 12, I went to Cooperstown, which is where they played that 12U tournament that a lot of kids get to go to now. It's an amazing event, very fun. And just sort of going there and I remember playing pretty well in that tournament. Going there and just seeing that like I could hang with like all the kids from around the country just sort of sparked something like I really wanted to get better after that, and just keep improving. And I was a somewhat big kid already at that time, so just sort of having the size advantage and knowing that I was blessed by God with size and the ability to move at my own time the size I am. Just to sort of take advantage of that and work as hard as I can and become mechanically better was my biggest focus. So by the time I was about 13, 14, or really 15, I guess, maybe starting high school, 9th grade, I started getting calls from college coaches and visits, and they were at my games and whatnot. And I was exposed to some of that, and I was like, whoa, like I can do this. And that was really cool. And then once I committed to Alabama, 9th grade, from there I've just been grinding. Just started Alabama freshman year. That's my goal now. Starting at Alabama as a freshman. So there's nothing special really. Just I've always wanted to be as good a college baseball player, or as good a baseball player as I can be. And the first step is college, and so I'm ready to go there and do well.
Now you're 17, 18?
18.
Okay, you're 18. I'm
18.
47. Okay, so when I was growing up, you had basically park and rec, community baseball, and you might have some travel teams here and there, but I didn't even know anything about travel baseball. So now I'm looking at things from a dad's perspective. I've got a 6-year-old son, and if you're wanting your son to develop as a baseball player, do you think travel is an absolute essential, or is that something that is a case by case basis? Tell me about that.
I don't know if essential. I think you can go without travel baseball, but I would say it is extremely helpful, highly recommended. I mean, the exposure of playing from like Little League, where you're just playing with kids in your area, versus I go to, I don't know, Georgia, and I'm playing against kids that are even from like Puerto Rico or California, Washington. I mean, you get to see how you stack up against the best players in the entire country, or even sometimes in the world, and so you get a ton of exposure to that. It's definitely a step up from like local rec league stuff or even high school. And I enjoy just the competition level. I think the competing is what's going to make you better. And so when you play travel ball, you're forced to compete against the best. So I think if you want to be excellent, I think travel ball is pretty much essential.
When did you start travel ball? Is it something that you really need to start from an early age, or is it something that you kind of develop into as you get into the middle and high school years?
Yeah, I think people are starting way too early now. I know I started probably like 8th grade, I would say. Like 8th grade is when I sort of like actually hit the travel market, if you will. I think 8th grade was the first time I went from Pennsylvania to Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania to Florida, I mean. And that was the first time I was like sort of like, whoa, like there's other kids, like whoa, other states exist. But I think if you're starting like 9U, that's just kind of pointless, honestly.
A little bit too early.
Definitely, I think too early. I think you're so young. Everybody's like the same size. Your kids are throwing like 40 miles per hour. There's not much competition there. It's just that might as well stay in rec league and save the money. But I think by the time you get older, like middle school, I think 6th, 7th grade now is like a good place to start. I think it gets to be extremely useful. So definitely start like middle school, I'd say.
Yeah. You mentioned mechanics earlier, and I want to talk a little bit about that. Who is the person or persons that sort of helped you develop in your mechanics?
Yeah, sure. So when I lived in Philly, I went to this place called Player Development Systems, called PDS. I started when I was like about 11, 12, like I said, right before Cooperstown. And I worked with a guy named Ches Angeloni at PDS, and Dan Williams was the throwing guy. Ches was the hitting guy. And I went to them every single day, even on Christmas sometimes, for about 4 or 5 years. And I think hanging out there there were some guys that ended up getting drafted, the Cianis, who I'm good friends with now. One of them's in the big leagues, Michael Ciani, and another one's in the minor leagues, Sammy Ciani. Hanging out with those guys and Ches in like a very professional environment, I sort of like picked up, I guess, like the ability to copy what they were doing. Like I never really was like working on something. I was just like sort of copying what they did. I saw what they did. I wanted to be like them. So I just sort of copied them. So I'd really credit Ches and Mike and Sam and those guys and Dan up north. And then when I moved down here, I started working with Casey Smith, who's out in Chelsea. He's been vital in my development, honestly. He's helped me a ton, really helped tap into that extra power, working on the, what's it called? I'm blanking on a word. Working on the consistency of my swing and getting the same swing off every time. And I credit those guys and my dad, obviously, when I was younger, just even putting a bat in my hands and throwing me countless pitches out here. Just been huge. All those guys have helped me a ton.
Where all have you been travel wise? I mean, you started out in England, then you've been in Pennsylvania. Now you're in Bama. You mentioned Florida.
Yeah.
We've talked about you've been all over the place. I mean, this is not a normal life, Caleb. Tell me where all you've been, what places you've enjoyed with your travel career.
Yeah. Moving around when I was younger was definitely something. I mean, my parents could probably tell you more about that. I don't even really remember living here when I was younger. But living up north in Philly was huge. I've been probably around every single baseball field in Pennsylvania. New Jersey is a big baseball state, and I've probably seen every baseball field in New Jersey too. And then, I've been to Florida, a ton of spots in Florida. There's the Booma Sports Complex. There's the West Palm Beach Complex. I've been to those places a billion times.
And are these places that you're going to work out at, or
they're more tournaments?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So you're going there to play games, although there have been workouts there too. East Cobb in Georgia is a big one that everyone's been to. I also had the privilege to play on Petco and Chase Field, like you said. I went to Chase Field twice this summer, which was a lot, but it was really fun. I've been to Arizona, California, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida. Virginia's were huge. West Virginia. Been to Ohio, Illinois. I played in a lot of states. I want to play in more of those. It was fun to travel.
Is there a baseball hub in the state of Alabama? I mean, is there just a big time facility that you mentioned the guy out in Chelsea earlier?
Yeah.
What is the Alabama baseball culture like? Is it on par with other states?
It's honestly very underrated. I think the competition here is actually quite good. I think a lot of people talk about Georgia and Texas or California too are baseball states, and they just have the best baseball, which I mean is true in and of itself. But Alabama is very underrated. There's a lot of good players here. I mean, Carter Johnson last year, who was an amazing competitor in person. He's just a great player. You got kids out here that are just like really good that kind of go unnoticed. I think for a baseball hub though, I don't know if there's like a general baseball play. I mean, the Hoover Met Complex is really big. You get a lot of people every year. I would say like if I had to choose, that'd be like the baseball spot, because there's a lot of good stuff that goes on out there. And I'd say Casey's the biggest hitting guy that I know of, out front hitting. Those two places, I guess I would say, are the biggest. Although I think Alabama really needs to solidify itself as a baseball place. I think Alabama football is just too good though.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
One thing that I want to know more about, and this is for just mainly selfish reasons, but in terms of getting your name out there, what are some sites? And I mean, in a way, you've kind of got to do a little bit of branding, a little bit of marketing of yourself sometimes. And what are some sites out there? And these could be websites, Twitter sites, whatever, that you can kind of get your name out there a little bit?
Yeah, I think Perfect Game is massive. I mean, they kind of have gone a little extra with like I think they have like 9U tournaments now, but I mean that speaks to just how big their brand is. I think getting to the national showcases, you got the sophomore and junior, and just the national showcases when you're a senior, and then Perfect Game All American. Those really help bring your brand up. I mean, I'm not a huge like brand guy. I know kids out there like Ethan Holiday. I mean, obviously he has a bit of a name recognition thing, but I mean he's borderline famous, you know. And you got other kids out there that are you know more well known than others. I would say I'm sort of less known than them, maybe more well known than I think, but less known than them for sure. The kids that I hang out with a lot. I think Perfect Game is huge. PBR is huge. Prep Baseball Report. I think there's a lot of NIL opportunities. Maybe not in Alabama, but around the country there are. I know I got a friend in Georgia who's got a couple NIL deals, and I'm just like, that's kind of cool.
Do you feel like that's, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you feel like that's coming to Alabama? I mean, we don't have NIL in Alabama. You're talking to guys in other states. You're seeing more of that. Do you think that's coming?
I sure hope so. I mean, it's kind of late for me at this point, but I mean, there's plenty of kids out here that could benefit from it. I mean, Ryan Williams out. Everyone knows Ryan Williams. He could have done a lot, which honestly might be the reason why he classed up, but I don't blame him. But I mean, I think there's a lot of kids in Alabama that have missed out on that. Like I said, Carter Johnson earlier could have really benefited from that. I mean, I know other younger kids that can benefit from that. I think it would be huge for the state of Alabama to endorse that. I mean, I don't see why not. Other states have done it. A little late for me, but speaking for the other people, I mean, I think it'd be great. I hope it does come to Alabama.
Yeah.
So.
You're an Alabama commit. Alabama's had a great baseball program throughout the years. Tell me what you liked about that program.
Yeah, I mean, their facilities are great. I grew up an Alabama football fan, sort of born into it. I've been committed there forever. They went through a coaching change. I love the original coaches, and I love these coaches right now. I mean, they're amazing dudes. They're young. They're fun. They do a great job at coaching. The more kids that commit in my class, the more kids that I've met that are older that are already there. I think they're all great people. I think they run a tight ship. I mean, it's competitive and it's hardworking, and you got to really push yourself when you get there. But it's also fun and relaxed, and you can, you know, enjoy yourself in a great place. You know, T-Town is a little hectic at times, but it's pretty cool. And the facilities for Alabama baseball are very underrated. I mean, they're really nice. Plus, you kind of get to mooch off the football program. So it's good stuff. I'm excited to go there. I can't wait. I was just there last weekend, or a couple of days ago, really, and I'm going to go down there this weekend again for my official visit, which is super exciting. So, yeah, I can't wait. Been committed to them forever.
I want to talk about your pitching philosophy and really just the overall philosophy. You've got so many players now that are having to have Tommy John surgery, and then, you know, pitch count is such a big deal. I was reading something on Facebook, and of course you got to take everything on Facebook with a grain of salt, but that Nolan Ryan threw like a 243 pitch game or something like that. I mean, has that completely changed? I mean, why are there so many surgeries, and what is the overall pitching philosophy of today's high school program?
Yeah, I think pitching has definitely changed a lot. I mean, pitching gets more scientific every year. I don't know if you've heard of Tread Athletics. They're another company that is just blown up. They really dive deep into like the science of pitching, spin rates and gyro and all that kind of stuff that even confuses me. I think Nolan Ryan is honestly the exception. It's insane that he threw so hard and also never got surgery. I think the surgeries nowadays come from a lot of training and a lot of pitching in games, and also just like the high velocity, high movement and all that. I think the only way to prevent it is to honestly probably throw not as hard or really, really, really take care of yourself. I mean, throwing plyo balls into the wall, stretching a ton, band work, everything. You got a ton of stuff you can do now to sort of protect yourself. And even though some people just end up getting it, it's just something you kind of got to deal with nowadays. I don't know like the science behind it. It just kind of sucks, but you know, God willing, I never have to get one surgery at Tommy John or anything like that. But best I can do is just sort of take care of my arm.
You know, they've developed that surgery over the last 20 years, and it's, I mean, you can still come back from it. It used to be something, oh God, the pitcher had Tommy John surgery. Is that becoming less of a big deal? That you can come back from it, you can be better.
Yeah, I would say it definitely has. I mean, you got guys that, I don't know if they're like 93, 94, and then they get Tommy John, they come back, they're topping like 102. I think it's become less of a big deal. I think it's still alarming to be like, oh, this guy's out for an entire year. Maybe not an entire year, but almost an entire year. And I think that's definitely not something that you want on your track list, so to say. But I think it's become less of a big deal. I think if a guy gets Tommy John, there's still confidence that, like, hey, you can really work hard and you can come back and throw, honestly be a better pitcher, which is insane to believe. I mean, Shohei Ohtani got injured, earlier this year or last year, and he was almost going to pitch in the World Series. I mean, it's doable to come back. He's already had it once, too. So many pitchers in the league have had it. I know kids in high school that have had it, and they come back and they're just as good. It's not something that you want to go through, but I think it's become less of a big deal.
Does stats? I mean, I'm old school, man, and I'm not. A lot of times, I feel like you need to go on feel, because I mean, you can be such a stat driven manager or coach, but then you got a guy that's out on the mound and maybe he's a little bit over the pitch count, but he's hot, he's feeling it. Does that sometimes get in the way with you, where you say, hey coach, I'm okay for another 20 pitches?
Yeah. I think numbers don't lie. I think if a guy's at a certain pitch count and he's injury risk or something like that, I think at a certain point, numbers need to take priority. But I mean, when it comes to pitch count and stuff like that, I think it's really up to the pitcher. I mean, I've gone games where I'm in the 6th inning and my arm's feeling great, but I have a high pitch count. I'm like, hey, I'm okay to go one more, which I think that's okay. If the pitcher knows what he's feeling, and he needs to really communicate that very clearly, and also really take care of himself post-game with recovery. But I mean, if it gets to a certain point, I think numbers sort of need to take priority there. And especially if you got a good guy on the mound and you don't want to risking injury might not be the best thing for, the team or anything. But yeah, I think feel is important still.
Is that something that you're talking to your coach about when you get back to the dugout? I mean, are you communicating? I mean, is that something that typically happens from here to the major league level? That when you get back to the dugout, you're communicating. How do you feel?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, every time I finish an inning, I walk off the mound. My pitching coach is going to come out and he's going to say, "Hey, how do you feel?" Normally, I tell him I'm feeling great, which I mean is true. But I think it's something that needs to happen, because pitchers getting hurt is a big deal, and it affects the whole team. I mean, in a lot of ways, really. But I think that's something that will continue to happen and should happen. It's good for the pitcher and it's good for the team. So I don't see that changing or anything. I think feel is huge, honestly. And I think the coaches need to be smart with feel and numbers. So
I think it sounds to me like there's got to be a level of trust between you and your pitching coach, and you and your coach just in general.
Totally.
That there's a relationship built on. Hey, I'm going to be honest about this, and they don't want you to get hurt, but they also want to win ball games.
Right. No, 100%. I mean, trusting if a pitcher can't communicate clearly that he's hurting or not feeling at his best and he gets hurt, I mean, it's on him.
Yeah.
I think sometimes coaches get sort of ridiculed, especially once you get higher up, get ridiculed for taking a pitcher out early. But I mean, maybe that pitcher wasn't feeling it. Maybe his arm, they communicated in the dugout. I think trust is massive. It's huge. And it goes for every player, really. I mean, if you got a guy whose leg is hurting out at shortstop, and I mean, you need a fully healthy shortstop out there to field the ball and make a clean throw and get outs for your team. So trust is huge.
And then the last question I've got for you is, I noticed on your Twitter that you've got Psalm 46:1, God is our refuge and strength. And so tell me a little bit about your faith and, what that means to you and how that applies to, what you're doing both here and in your daily life.
Totally. My dad is actually a professor in theology and philosophy at a Catholic school, Villanova. So I've grown up Catholic my whole life. Religion's huge. Trusting in the Lord He's blessed me with abilities that I couldn't imagine I would have. He's blessed my family with good health and the ability to have running water, stuff as simple as that, keeping me in good health throughout the years. I've been so blessed for my whole life. I think thanking the Lord and staying with your faith is extremely important for everybody. I think if you haven't found the Lord, you should go try. Church on Sundays, it only takes like an hour. It's not hard. And I think delving deep into your faith is huge for every player. You go to a bat and maybe you're not feeling so good. Just pray to the Lord real quick. I think He'll help you out. I think faith is huge in athletes and sports. I'm taking a lot of inspiration from a guy like C.J. Stroud.
Yeah,
Is huge on faith, and I love watching him and listening to him. So I think it's important in all aspects of life and especially sports.
well, I think that's a great perspective because a lot of times people that are extremely good at what they do and they spend the majority of their time working on that skill. Sometimes faith can take a back seat to that. So to be able to continue that perspective and have that perspective moving forward is very impressive to me. So, all right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time. It's been great to talk to you, and I wish you the very best in the future.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
And that's a wrap. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Talegate Podcast. And in the meantime, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We'll see you next time.